Hey, hijab lady. You can't just camp out here all day. This isn't a charity shelter. Officer Daniels stood over Amina Rahman, blocking her sunlight with his imposing frame. He gestured at her wheelchair like she was an obstruction he needed to remove. 8 months pregnant, wearing a flowing abaya and neatly wrapped hijab, Amina sat quietly outside Brookfield Plaza's flagship store, 3 designer shopping bags at her feet. Her black silk maternity dress from Harrods likely cost more than Daniels made in 2 weeks. The glint of a Cartier watch peeked from beneath her sleeve. But Daniels didn't see that. He saw what he expected to see, a problem to be dealt with. "I'm just waiting for my ride home," Amina replied, her voice calm but firm. Daniels sighed dramatically for the benefit of a few onlookers gathering nearby. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, sweetheart." Across the street, a teenage boy lifted his phone, thumb hovering over the record button. "Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to learn who you really are?" 8 months pregnant, seated in her wheelchair, Amina glanced at her phone. Her rideshare app showed 12 minutes until pickup. 12 minutes to endure whatever this was turning into. "Officer, I'm simply waiting for my transportation," she said evenly. Her silk maternity abaya whispered softly as she shifted. At her feet, the glossy bags read Tiffany, Michael Kors, Sephora. Daniels wasn't listening. His partner, Officer Bailey, shifted uneasily beside him, clearly wishing he was somewhere else. "Bailey, call for backup," Daniels barked into his radio. "We've got an uncooperative loiterer situation at Brookfield Plaza." Loiterer. The word hung in the air like an insult. Across the street, 17-year-old Noah Pierce hit the Instagram Live button. "You guys need to see this," he muttered to his followers. The little red dot blinked on. Viewer count, 1. Store security emerged from the revolving doors like sharks drawn to a scent. Patricia Ames, the day manager, followed briskly, her heels tapping on the concrete. "Officers, thank you for responding so quickly," Ames said, not sparing Amina a glance. "We've had complaints about this situation." Situation. Another carefully chosen word that erased humanity. Amina's phone buzzed. A secure message flashed across the military-grade screen. Command meeting rescheduled to 1,400 hours. Clearance required. Before we proceed further, I want to take a moment to invite you to be part of something bigger than just this story. If what you've heard so far has made you feel, think, or reflect, even for a moment, then hit that like button so more people can discover voices like these. Subscribe to Muslim Stories Unheard so you never miss the next untold truth waiting to be heard. And if you've lived through moments of bias, resilience, faith, or triumph, or even witnessed them, share your experience in the comments. Let's get back to our story. She swiped it away, but not before checking her Garmin Tactic 7, a watch very few civilians would recognize. "Ma'am, I need to see some identification," Daniels said, extending his hand like she was obliged to hand it over. "Why?" Amina asked simply. "Because I said so," Daniels shot back, voice heavy with authority. "This is private property, and you're trespassing." Noah's viewer count climbed to 127. Comments poured in. "Is this for real? She's clearly just shopping. Someone call the press." Ames stepped closer, speaking in the slow, loud tone people reserve for those they think can't understand. "Sweetie, you can't just sit here in front of our store. You're making our customers uncomfortable." The entrance was 20 feet wide. Amina's wheelchair occupied maybe 3 feet, positioned neatly out of the way. Facts didn't matter now. "I understand," Amina said softly. "I'm not blocking anyone. I'll be gone soon." She checked her phone again. 10 minutes. "Daniels," Bailey began cautiously, "maybe we should just..." "Just what?" Daniels snapped. "Let anyone in a headscarf think they can sit wherever they want." There it was. The assumption. In Daniels' mind, a pregnant Muslim woman in a wheelchair could only mean trouble. Noah's Instagram Live ticked past 300 viewers. He angled his phone to show Amina's designer clothes, her leather handbag, the glossy shopping bags that screamed affluence. The contrast was glaring. "This is disgusting," someone typed. "She's obviously not homeless." But Daniels was committed to his narrative. "Ma'am, being pregnant doesn't give you the right to loiter. And that tone isn't helping your case." Tone. Muslim women knew the word well. Code for you're not being submissive enough. Amina's purse sat open beside her. Inside, just visible, was an official government-issued ID card with an embossed seal, the edge of a Department of Defense logo catching the light. The camera angle made it impossible for Noah's viewers to read. Her phone buzzed again. Senate hearing prep confirmed. 1,500 hours. Classification briefing required. She glanced at it, then looked back up at Daniels with steady patience. Officer, I haven't broken any laws. I'm waiting for my husband to pick me up. Your husband? Daniels gave a short, cold laugh. And where exactly is this husband of yours? The question dripped with disbelief, as though the idea that someone could love and protect Amina Rahman was somehow absurd. Noah's livestream had surged to 856 viewers, his comment section lighting up like a firestorm. Someone please tell me they're calling this in. This cop needs to be fired. She's clearly a paying customer. Look at those bags. Store security whispered among themselves. One guard discreetly pulled out his phone, probably texting higher-ups. The situation was spinning further than anyone had planned. Patricia Ames, the store manager, tried a softer tone. Look, I'm sure you're a lovely person, but this is causing a disturbance. Our customers are complaining. Amina looked around. The so-called customers were mostly onlookers, phones out, recording every second. The real disturbance wasn't her, it was Officer Daniels himself. 8 minutes, she murmured, checking her ride status again. Officer Bailey took a hesitant step forward. Ma'am, is there somewhere else you could wait? Maybe inside the… Absolutely not, Ames cut in sharply. Our policy is very clear about loitering. Loitering. The word hit like another slap. The unspoken translation. Existing in public while wearing a hijab in the wrong place. Amina's phone lit up with an incoming call. The contact name showed only 2 initials, DC. She declined it quickly, but not before Daniels caught the flash of her screen. Who was that? He demanded, eyes narrowing. Your handler or something. You working with someone. The insinuation hung in the air like a toxin. Noah's viewers reacted instantly. The count jumped to 1,243. Comments poured in. Did he just imply she's dangerous? This is insane. That was my husband, Amina replied, her voice still level. Sure it was, Daniels muttered, smirking at Bailey like they were sharing a private joke about lying women in headscarves. 7 minutes left. 7 minutes until this ended. One way or another. But Amina Rahman had been preparing for confrontations like this her entire adult life. She just never thought she'd face 8 months pregnant, in a wheelchair, outside a luxury department store. The crowd swelled to nearly 30 people now, phones raised like glowing torches in a digital arena. A sleek black sedan with government plates rolled to the curb. Vincent Carlisle stepped out, adjusting the cuff of his tailored suit. Regional Director for Brookfield Plaza's entire West Division. Corporate salary, $347,000, according to public records. His presence meant the incident had escalated to the point where corporate HQ was paying attention. What's the status here? Carlisle demanded, walking toward them with a stride that radiated corporate authority. Daniels straightened immediately, sensing backup. Sir, we're dealing with an uncooperative individual who refuses to vacate private property. Noah's livestream hit 3,147 viewers. Comments flew across the screen faster than anyone could read. Where's the media? She's literally shopping. What is this? Carlisle's eyes swept over Amina. The wheelchair, the pregnancy, the hijab framing her face. Calculations about liability, optics, and PR played out silently behind his gaze. Ma'am, I'm Vincent Carlisle, Regional Director for Brookfield Plaza Corporation, he announced. We have the legal right to refuse service to anyone and to ask non-customers to leave our premises. Non-customers, despite the 3 glossy bags bearing his company's logos sitting right beside her. Sir, I am a customer, Amina replied evenly. I just made purchases in your store. I'm simply waiting for my transportation. Carlisle scrolled through something on his phone. Legal documents, from the look of it. Our corporate policy is very clear. No loitering on company property without management approval. That word again. Loitering. Sharpened each time it was used. Amina's phone buzzed. Another message, this one marked urgent. NSC briefing moved to 14:30. Confirm attendance. She swiped it away quickly, but Carlisle's eyes flicked toward her screen. Ma'am, put the phone down and provide identification immediately, he ordered. 5 minutes left. Maybe we could just wait until her ride arrives, Bailey suggested cautiously. We don't negotiate with trespassers, Daniels barked back. The crowd shifted, restless. A woman in yoga pants stepped forward. Excuse me, but she's obviously a paying customer. Look at those shopping bags. Carlyle turned toward the crowd, slipping into polished corporate mode. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your concern, but this is a private security matter. Please disperse for your own safety. Noah adjusted his phone angle, so all 4,500 viewers could see the entire scene. A notification popped up. Sarah Grant, a local news blogger with 47,000 followers, had joined the live stream and was already sharing it with her audience. Momentum was building like an avalanche. Officer Daniels, Carlyle said, I think we need to escalate this. She's clearly disturbing our business operations. Disturbing business operations. The shopping center bustled with its usual rhythm, families strolling, teens laughing, couples holding hands. The only real disruption was the knot of authority figures encircling one visibly pregnant woman in a wheelchair. Amina checked her Garmin Tactic 7, which Carlyle had probably mistaken for a fitness tracker. 4 minutes and 30 seconds until pickup. Sir, she said evenly, I understand your position. In 4 minutes, I'll be gone, and this will be resolved. 4 minutes too long, Carlyle replied sharply. Daniels, what are our options here? Daniels cracked his knuckles theatrically. Well, we could cite her for trespassing, disturbing the peace, maybe even suspicious conduct. Each possible charge hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Noah's comment section exploded. This is insane. She's done nothing wrong. Pregnant woman in a wheelchair. How is this okay? A local news van turned the corner, Channel 7's logo bright against its white paint. Sarah Grant had made the call. What began as a casual Instagram live was becoming a full-fledged media event. Carlyle spotted the van, and his demeanor shifted, corporate damage control mode engaged. Perhaps we can resolve this more quietly, he suggested, though the conviction in his voice was fading. Amina's phone rang again. The display read, DC Secure. She declined, but Carlyle's gaze lingered on her phone. Who keeps calling you? He asked sharply. My husband, she replied with infinite patience. Daniels let out a short, mocking laugh. Right, your mysterious husband who can't even pick you up on time. 4 minutes left. The circle tightened around her wheelchair. Daniels on her left, Bailey on her right looking increasingly uneasy, Carlyle in front, Ames flanking with store security. Noah's viewer count surged past 6,200. The news crew was setting up across the street, a telephoto lens trained on the scene. A middle-aged man in the crowd called out, Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help? Carlyle spun on him. Sir, please step back. This is a security situation. Security situation. Another euphemism, a phrase meant to make harassment sound official. Actually, the man shot back loudly, this looks like harassment to me. Other voices joined in. She's not doing anything wrong. Leave her alone. This is discrimination. The crowd was shifting, its mood turning against the officials. Carlyle felt the change like sand slipping under his feet. Corporate seminars had covered plenty of crisis scenarios, but not a viral social media storm with a live news crew filming every second. Amina's phone buzzed with a text, package secured. En route. ETA 3 minutes. She read it quickly, then glanced up to see Carlyle eyeing her phone again. What kind of package? He demanded, suspicion creeping into his tone. My husband is picking me up, she said simply. Daniels stepped closer, invading her personal space. Ma'am, you've been acting suspicious since we got here, checking your phone constantly, getting mysterious calls. We have reasonable suspicion to detain you for questioning. Detain. The word rippled through Noah's audience like an electric shock. 7,100 people were now watching as the situation edged toward something darker. Bailey finally spoke with conviction. Daniels, she's just sitting here. She hasn't committed any crime. Haven't committed any crime? Daniels shot back. Trespassing, disturbing the peace, suspicious activity. That's 3 charges right there. Suspicious activity. Being pregnant, Muslim, and disabled apparently qualified. The Channel 7 crew had their camera ready. Sarah Grant edged forward, her phone recording every second for her own report. 3 minutes left on Amina's timer. Carlyle had his corporate phone pressed to his ear now, speaking in a low, urgent tone, snippets like liability and viral video drifting through the air. Amina sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, hands folded over her 8-month belly, watching grown men unravel over her simple existence in public space. She thought about the irony. Tomorrow morning, Amina Rahman would be seated in a classified briefing room, advising senior military officials on national security matters. Tonight, she would likely be trending on social media as yet another example of Islamophobic discrimination in America. But the men surrounding her had no idea who they were really dealing with. 2.5 minutes left. Noah's Instagram live broke 8,000 viewers. The comment feed was a river of outrage, support, and demands for justice. Screenshots were already flooding Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. This was no longer about one pregnant Muslim woman waiting for her ride. It was about to become something much bigger. 2 minutes remaining. The viewer count spiked to 12,000. Comments blurred into an unreadable stream of fury and solidarity. Screenshots and hashtags surged across social media. Hashtag pregnant woman harassed. Hashtag Brookfield Plaza shame. Hashtag stop Islamophobia. Amina sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, hands resting over her 8-month belly. She was carrying new life, and yet these men treated her as though she were a threat to public safety. "Ma'am," Daniels said, his tone taking on an ominous weight, "I'm going to need you to step out of that wheelchair for a search." The crowd gasped. Even Bailey looked stunned. "Officer," Bailey said quietly, "she's 8 months pregnant." "You can't." "I can and I will." Daniels cut him off. "Suspicious behavior warrants a search. She could be hiding weapons, or anything under that hijab or in the chair." Carlyle nodded approvingly. "We have to think about customer safety." Noah's viewers surged past 15,000. The comment section became a solid wall of fury. "This is insane. Call the FBI. She's pregnant, for God's sake. This is America in 2024. Sarah Grant pushed through the crowd, her professional camera rolling. The Channel 7 news van had positioned itself perfectly, lenses locked on the scene. This wasn't just local news anymore. This was national. 1 minute 30 seconds left. Amina looked down at her handbag, a $3,200 Hermes that Carlyle probably couldn't afford on his regional director salary. Inside, between her wallet and prenatal vitamins, was the truth about who she really was. "Officer Daniels," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the rising chaos with a different kind of authority. Her tone had changed. The polite patience was gone, replaced with something that made Bailey straighten instinctively. Military bearing has a sound all its own. Amina reached into her bag with deliberate precision. The motion was calm, economical, the muscle memory of someone who'd spent years in high-stakes briefings where every gesture mattered. She withdrew a leather credential case, black with an embossed gold seal. The Department of Defense Eagle was unmistakable. "Dr. Amina Rahman," she said, snapping it open with a sharp click that cut through the crowd noise. "Naval intelligence. Security clearance. Secret sensitive compartmented information." The words hit Daniels like a physical blow. His hand froze halfway to his radio. Carlyle's face drained of color. Even the crowd went still, trying to process what they'd just heard. Noah's phone shook in his hands. 18,000 viewers and climbing. The comments shifted instantly. "Oh my God, naval intelligence. These cops are so screwed." Bailey was the first to recover, his military training kicking in. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He knew the credential format. He recognized the clearance level. This was real now. "Ma'am," Bailey said, his voice completely different. "I apologize. We didn't know." "You didn't know," Amina replied evenly, "because you didn't ask. You saw a pregnant Muslim woman in a wheelchair and made assumptions." She lifted her phone and displayed a photo that made Carlyle take an involuntary step back. The image showed Amina in full naval dress uniform, standing beside a man in military dress blues, his chest heavy with ribbons and insignia. The gold Navy SEAL trident, a bronze star, a purple heart, decorations that spoke of sacrifice and service at the highest level. "Lieutenant Commander Samir Rahman," she continued, "United States Navy SEALs. My husband, currently assigned to Special Operations Command. He's picking me up from our shopping trip." The silence that followed was absolute. 28 people stood frozen, their phones recording every second of Daniel's public unraveling. Sarah Grant inched closer, her camera locked in, professional instincts humming. This wasn't just a discrimination story anymore. This was a career-defining exclusive. "Dr. Rahman," Carlyle stammered, "we had no way of knowing." "You had every way of knowing," Amina interrupted, her tone still calm but threaded with steel. "You could have asked for identification before assuming I was some sort of security risk. You could have noticed my clothing, my purchases, the way I spoke. Instead, you chose to see what you wanted to see. Noah's viewer count hit 22,000. Local news stations nationwide were picking up the feed. This was going viral in real time. 1 minute left. Her phone buzzed. Oversight Committee briefing confirmed. 0800 tomorrow. Senate Armed Services Committee testimony on Project Seahawk. She glanced at it, then looked up at the circle of men who, minutes ago, had been ready to forcibly search her. Gentlemen, in less than 1 minute, my husband will arrive to take me home. Tomorrow morning, I'll be briefing members of Congress on classified naval operations. This afternoon, I was simply a pregnant woman buying baby clothes and waiting for a ride. Daniel's hands trembled slightly. He had threatened to detain a federal intelligence officer. His career was as good as over, and the entire internet was about to watch it happen. Carlisle pulled out his phone, texting frantically. His corporate higher-ups were probably already drafting press releases and legal damage control. Dr. Rahman, Bailey said formally, on behalf of the Metro Police Department, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. Officer Bailey, she replied, you tried to de-escalate. You showed respect. That speaks well of your training and your character. Then she turned to Daniels, who looked like he might collapse into the pavement. Officer Daniels, you assumed I was a vagrant, a criminal, a threat. You threatened to forcibly remove me from my wheelchair. You did this while I sat here, harming no one, waiting for my husband. Noah's stream surged past 25,000 viewers, the comments a flood of vindication. Get him. Justice. Seal wife justice, Daniels is done. 30 seconds left. A black Chevy Tahoe with government plates rounded the corner, moving with the precise, economical control of a trained operator. It rolled to a stop in front of the crowd. Engine running. Driver's door opening. Lieutenant Commander Samir Rahman stepped out, 6'4", 240 pounds of disciplined military muscle. Civilian clothes, but the quiet authority of a man forged in combat. His eyes swept the scene instantly. Threat assessment, crowd control, wife's condition. Amina, he said first, voice warm with concern. Then his gaze cut to Daniels, Carlisle, and the knot of officials around her. Everything all right here, Dr. Rahman? He asked, his calm tone laced with the kind of weight that made even hardened men step back. The seal trident tattoo on his forearm caught the light as he folded his arms. Daniels swallowed hard. Just a misunderstanding, Commander Rahman, Amina said, never breaking eye contact with Daniels. These gentlemen thought I was a vagrant who needed to be removed from the premises. Samir nodded slowly, processing. 28 civilians. Multiple recording devices. News crew. Livestream at 28,000 viewers and climbing. I see, he said, just 2 words, but heavy enough to silence the crowd. Noah's phone trembled in his hands. The comments were moving too fast to read, but fragments cut through. Navy SEAL husband, game over. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Carlisle tried one last push at corporate damage control. Commander Rahman, please understand, this was just. Samir held up one finger. Not rude. Not aggressive. Just final. The kind of gesture that ended conversations in war zones. Gentlemen, he said, scanning every face. My wife is 8 months pregnant. She's been shopping for our baby. She is a decorated naval officer with a security clearance higher than most people in this city. And you treated her like a criminal. Silence. 31,000 people watched American justice balance on the edge of a blade. But Amina wasn't done. There's one more thing, she said, her voice slicing the air. She produced a different phone, one that made Carlisle's eyes widen. Government issued. Encrypted. Worth more than most cars. Tomorrow morning at 0800, I testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee on Project Seahawk, a classified program involving contractor oversight and military spending accountability. Senator Patricia Murray personally requested my expertise. She paused, letting it sink in. Brookfield Plaza Corporation holds $847 million in federal contracts, commissary services, military housing, base retail. My testimony includes recommendations on contractor compliance with federal non-discrimination policies, particularly as they relate to service members and their families. Carlisle's face drained to chalk. 23% of his company's annual revenue was now sitting in Amina Rahman's hands. Noah's viewer count hit 35,000. The comments were exploding. She's testifying to Congress. Brookfield Plaza is so screwed. This woman is legendary. Samir stepped closer to his wife's wheelchair, one broad hand resting protectively on her shoulder. His simple gold wedding band caught the light, engraved with the seal trident and their wedding date. "Dr. Rahman," Carlyle said desperately, "surely we can resolve this quietly. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding." "Mr. Carlyle," Amina interrupted, her voice cutting like glass. "This stopped being quiet the moment it went live to 35,000 people. And it stopped being a misunderstanding when Officer Daniels threatened to forcibly search a pregnant federal intelligence officer because she was wearing a hijab in public." She gestured toward the crowd, toward Noah's phone, toward the news cameras now trained on her. "This is now a documented case study in institutional bias. Tomorrow, when I sit before Congress, I'll have real-world evidence of how military families are treated by federal contractors." Daniels finally found his voice, though it came out as a dry whisper. "Dr. Rahman, I didn't know." "Officer Daniels," she replied, her tone carrying the weight of someone who had briefed admirals and generals, "ignorance isn't a defense. It's the problem." Sarah Grant pushed forward, microphone in hand. "Dr. Rahman, would you like to comment on camera about what happened here today?" Amina looked at her husband. Samir gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Command decision made. "What happened here today happens to military families, to visibly Muslim families, to disabled individuals across America every single day. The only difference is that most of them aren't recorded live by 35,000 witnesses." She gestured to her shopping bags, her designer abaya, the custom wheelchair. "I have every privilege American society can offer: education, economic stability, military rank, a security clearance, a decorated seal for a husband. And still, I was treated like a criminal for existing in public while wearing a hijab and sitting in a wheelchair." The crowd was dead silent. Noah's livestream had become appointment viewing for a national audience. "If this can happen to me," Amina continued, "imagine what happens to military families with less protection, less privilege, less ability to fight back." Samir quietly transferred the shopping bags into their vehicle, a gesture both protective and intimate, a husband caring for his pregnant wife after a public humiliation. "Will you be filing formal complaints?" Sarah asked. Amina smiled for the first time that afternoon, though it wasn't warm. "Ms. Grant, I'll be briefing Congress tomorrow morning. I think I'll let them decide what complaints need to be filed." Noah's phone showed 42,000 viewers. This wasn't just viral, this was a cultural moment. As Samir helped her into the passenger seat, Amina turned one last time to the cluster of men who had surrounded her minutes earlier. "Gentlemen," she said, addressing Daniels and Carlyle directly, "you had an opportunity today to see a pregnant woman as a human being deserving of basic dignity. Instead, you chose to see a threat to be neutralized." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Tomorrow, Congress will hear about your choices." The Tahoe pulled away with military precision, leaving behind a crowd of stunned witnesses, and two men whose careers had just ended on live television. Noah finally ended his live stream after 45,000 viewers had watched the black Tahoe disappear around the corner. The silence left in its wake felt heavier than the shouts that had preceded it. It had barely turned the corner when Carlyle's phone erupted, corporate headquarters, legal, crisis management, all demanding answers. His CEO's text read, "Conference call in 10 minutes. Bring lawyers." Daniels looked like he had aged a decade in as many minutes. His radio crackled with dispatch. "Unit 47, please respond. We're getting calls about an incident at Brookfield Plaza." Bailey answered instead. "Dispatch, this is Unit 52. We need a supervisor at our location immediately." Within 15 minutes, the scene had shifted again. Captain Lisa Morrison arrived with two internal affairs investigators. Corporate lawyers appeared in black sedans. The Brookfield Plaza regional manager flew in by helicopter from Dallas. But the real pressure was online. Hashtag Navy wife discrimination was trending nationwide on Twitter. The livestream video had been shared 15,000 times in under 20 minutes. TikTok users were stitching Noah's feed with their own commentary. Instagram stories were flooded with screenshots and outraged captions. Most significantly, someone had tagged Senator Patricia Murray's official Twitter account. Murray, chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, responded within 30 minutes. Deeply disturbed by reports of discrimination against military families. Dr. Rahman's scheduled testimony tomorrow will address these exact issues. Full investigation warranted. The tweet was retweeted 50,000 times in the first hour. Carlyle's conference call with corporate HQ lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it ended, His face looked carved from chalk. "We're screwed," he muttered to no one in particular. The math was brutal and simple. Brookfield Plaza annual revenue, $2.34 billion. Federal contracts, $847 million, 36% of total revenue. Military commissary exclusives, $312 million annually. Defense family housing, $89 million annually. Overseas base retail, $446 million annually. All those contracts included strict anti-discrimination clauses. Violation meant immediate contract review and potential suspension or termination. Dr. Amina Rahman wasn't just a pregnant woman in a wheelchair who'd been harassed. She was a federal intelligence officer with top-secret/SCI clearance, testifying before Congress in less than 18 hours about contractor oversight and compliance. The story had already been picked up by CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC. Every outlet wanted the exclusive on the pregnant Navy officer harassed for wearing a hijab story. By 6 p.m., #BrookfieldPlazaShame was trending in all 50 states. The Washington Post's investigative desk had pulled the corporation's federal contract history. The New York Times was interviewing discrimination law experts. Military Times was preparing a front-page spread on bias against service families. Carlyle's second call from corporate came at 6:47 p.m. This one lasted only 3 minutes. When it ended, he was no longer regional director. Effective immediately, suspended pending investigation. CEO Margaret Whitfield's voice over the speaker had been ice cold. Legal will handle all media inquiries. Do not speak to press, police, or your family. We're in full damage control mode. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels was learning what under investigation meant in the age of viral media. Captain Rebecca Martinez from Internal Affairs didn't soften her words. "Daniels, in 30 years of police work, I've never seen a more textbook example of Islamophobic profiling. You threatened to search a pregnant federal officer because she was wearing a headscarf and checking her phone while waiting for a ride. The body cam footage was damning. Every word, every gesture, every assumption recorded in high definition. His threat to forcibly remove her from her wheelchair was already being played on national broadcasts." "She was acting suspicious," Daniels mumbled weakly. "Suspicious how?" Martinez shot back. "By staying calm while you harassed her? By receiving encrypted messages because she's a naval intelligence officer? You need to understand, what you did today will be used in police training videos as the example of what not to do." Officer Bailey, on the other hand, was being praised. His body cam showed him repeatedly trying to de-escalate, redirecting Daniels, and showing proper respect once Amina's credentials were revealed. But the real corporate bloodbath was happening in Dallas boardrooms, where Brookfield Plaza executives were calculating the cost of one afternoon's Islamophobic discrimination. Stock price, down 12% in after-hours trading. Social media sentiment, 847,000 negative mentions in 6 hours. Congressional inquiry, already announced. Federal contract review, automatically triggered by Dr. Rahman's testimony. Class action discrimination lawsuits, already filed in 3 states. The PR firm brought in for crisis management delivered their verdict at 9 p.m. This is a Category 5 corporate disaster. You need immediate, dramatic action to avoid total brand collapse. Recommendations were swift and brutal. Immediate termination of Carlyle and all involved managers. Public apology from CEO Margaret Whitfield. $500,000 donation to military family support organizations. Complete policy overhaul with mandatory anti-bias training. Independent oversight for all customer interactions. Direct outreach to Dr. Rahman with a compensation offer. Even then, it might not be enough. At 0800 tomorrow, Dr. Amina Rahman would sit before the Senate Armed Services Committee with irrefutable evidence of how a federal contractor had treated a visibly Muslim military spouse, 8 months pregnant, in a wheelchair, harassed while shopping for baby clothes, and threatened with arrest for nothing more than existing in public. Senator Murray had already announced expanded hearings on military family discrimination. The Pentagon's Contractor Compliance Office launched a formal review. The Justice Department's Civil Rights Division confirmed it was monitoring the case. At 11:30 p.m., CEO Margaret Whitfield made the call she'd hoped she'd never have to make. "Dr. Rahman, this is Margaret Whitfield, CEO of Brookfield Plaza Corporation. I know it's late, but I need to speak with you about what happened today." The conversation lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, both women understood that tomorrow's congressional testimony wouldn't just shape discrimination policy. It could decide the future of a $2.34 billion corporation. By then, the next morning's headlines were already being written. Navy officer testifies on discrimination hours after viral harassment. Pregnant military wife's story rocks corporate America. From shopping trip to congressional testimony, a military family's fight for dignity. Noah Pierce's Instagram live had done more than capture bias against a visibly Muslim woman. It had triggered a reckoning that would reshape how military families were treated nationwide. The question wasn't whether change would come. The question was whether Brookfield Plaza would survive to see it. Torres sat in his office at midnight, cardboard boxes littering the desk, watching his 20-year retail career dissolve into viral infamy. Daniels sat in his kitchen, badge and gun confiscated, wondering how 42 years of life had ended with him becoming the face of Islamophobic profiling on national television. And somewhere in a secure government facility, Dr. Amina Rahman was preparing testimony that would change everything. 3 months later, the changes were undeniable. Daniels sat in his car outside the unemployment office, scrolling through job listings, all requiring background checks. Every Google search of his name led to the video of him threatening a pregnant Navy officer for acting suspicious while wearing a hijab. He had applied for 43 security jobs. 0 callbacks. The Internal Affairs investigation concluded that Daniels had violated 6 department policies and 3 federal statutes regarding discrimination against protected classes. His police certification was permanently revoked in Texas and flagged nationally. Bailey, meanwhile, had been promoted to Community Relations Supervisor, a new position created specifically to prevent incidents like the one that ended his partner's career. His body cam footage showing calm de-escalation had become training material for police academies nationwide. Vincent Carlisle discovered corporate disgrace followed him everywhere. The retail world was small. Everyone knew what happened. His LinkedIn showed former regional director with a suspicious 3-month gap. Foreclosure notices were arriving. His marriage had ended. But the deeper change went far beyond personal consequences. Brookfield Plaza had implemented what became known as the Rahman Protocol, a comprehensive anti-discrimination framework soon adopted by other major retailers. Mandatory training. All 47,000 employees completed 40 hours of anti-bias and cultural competency training within 90 days. Failure to complete meant immediate termination, no exceptions. Digital monitoring. AI-powered customer service analysis flagged discriminatory language or behavior in real time, sending alerts straight to corporate HQ. Direct hotline. Military families could report discrimination directly to the CEO's office through an encrypted app. Average response time, 47 minutes. Economic accountability. Store managers' bonuses were tied to diversity metrics and satisfaction scores from customers in protected groups. Federal oversight. Monthly audits by Pentagon contractor compliance officers became standard, with unannounced inspections possible at any time. The financial cost was steep. $127 million in training, settlements, and monitoring systems. But not only did Brookfield Plaza retain its federal contracts, they expanded. Dr. Rahman's testimony praised companies that took immediate, meaningful action. Brookfield Plaza became the gold standard for military family-friendly retail. CEO Margaret Whitfield's late-night call to Dr. Rahman had been the turning point. "I can't undo what happened to you," Whitfield had said, "but I can make sure it never happens to another military family at any of our locations." And for once, a corporation actually meant it. The agreement they reached became a model for corporate accountability. $250,000 donated to the Military Family Dignity Foundation, founded by Dr. Amina Rahman. A personal apology from Whitfield, delivered privately to the Rahman family. Dr. Rahman appointed to Brookfield Plaza's newly created Military Family Advisory Board, with an annual $500,000 commitment to military spouse employment programs. Her congressional testimony the next morning was devastating and transformative. Dr. Rahman spoke for exactly 18 minutes, using the Brookfield Plaza incident as a case study in institutional bias against military families. "Senators," she said, meeting the committee's gaze, "when a pregnant federal intelligence officer can be threatened with arrest for shopping while wearing a hijab and sitting in a wheelchair, we have a systemic problem that demands systemic solutions." Her recommendations became federal law within 6 months. The Military Family Protection Act required all federal contractors to implement anti-discrimination training and monitoring systems. Verified discrimination could trigger immediate contract suspension. Military families gained special protected status under federal law, with expedited investigations and prosecutions. A contractor accountability database tracked complaints and created a permanent record affecting future bids. The impact rippled across the country like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Noah Pierce's original Instagram Live had been viewed 2.3 million times across all platforms. He'd been interviewed by CNN, featured in Time's 30 Under 30, and offered a position as a social media coordinator for the ACLU. His documentation inspired the Record and Report movement, urging people to live-stream discrimination incidents for immediate accountability. Sarah Grant's coverage won a regional Emmy. Her follow-up series on military family discrimination drove policy changes at 12 major retail chains. But the most personal change was this. Dr. Rahman gave birth to Hope Justice Rahman on a Tuesday morning in February. Healthy, beautiful, and born into a world slightly more just than the one her mother had faced 3 months earlier. Lieutenant Commander Samir Rahman took paternal leave to care for his wife and daughter. His SEAL commanding officer made sure bureaucracy stayed out of their way. The Rahman story became required reading at military leadership schools, business ethics programs, and civil rights law courses. It showed that individual courage, combined with public documentation and institutional accountability, could create lasting change. It proved that discrimination thrives in silence but dies in the light. 1 year later, Dr. Rahman stood before a packed Naval Academy auditorium. Hope slept peacefully in Samir's arms in the front row. "Midshipman," she began, "leadership isn't just about commanding troops or ships. It's about recognizing the humanity in every person you encounter, especially when they don't look like you, speak like you, or share your experiences." The story of that afternoon outside Brookfield Plaza had become legend, not just in military circles, but across America. Maya Sinclair, now a civil rights documentary filmmaker, had tracked the ripple effects of her live stream. 47 similar incidents had been resolved using the Rahman protocol: immediate documentation, viral amplification, and systemic accountability. The Military Family Dignity Foundation had grown into a 23,000-member organization. They'd helped pass anti-discrimination policies at 127 major retailers, 89 restaurant chains, and 67 service providers. Their scholarship fund had sent 156 military children to college. Officer Bailey, now Chief of Community Relations, had implemented a document and de-escalate policy that dropped bias complaints in his department by 73% in 2 years. Police agencies in 43 states had adopted it. Even Officer Daniel's downfall became a training example, his career-ending mistake serving as a cautionary tale in law enforcement academies. Corporate America learned that discrimination wasn't just morally indefensible, it was financially ruinous. Business schools studied the Brookfield Plaza effect as proof that social media could undo decades of brand building in hours. But the deepest impact was cultural. The phrase, "Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to learn who you really are?" became a rallying cry for dignity movements worldwide. Dr. Rahman's testimony was still quoted in debates about military family protections, contractor accountability, and civil rights enforcement. Her calm, data-driven approach proved that intellectual precision could outmatch aggression. "Your voice matters," she told the audience. "Your story matters. And your willingness to stand up for dignity, your own and others, can change the world." She paused, scanning the faces of hundreds of future leaders. The question isn't whether you'll encounter injustice. The question is what you'll do when you see it. It was more than a speech. It was a challenge, one that, thanks to her, the country was far better prepared to meet.